Meeting, yes, for a change, and make sure that we've got this as a resource. Thank you all very, very much for coming today. We know there are lots of things that are going on always with AARP and so many places to get information. But this is probably one of the few places where you can just be comfortable saying what you want, sharing information between volunteers and staff. You're all invited to come off mute when you wish and add something or ask a question. Use the chat if you don't want to do that. We'll keep these recordings. We keep information. We'll keep the chat and make sure that you've got that information. Today, the topic is one that I know we're going to have this discussion in lots of places probably, but volunteer engagement, talking about in-person, virtual, and hybrid challenges. And I didn't want to make it just challenges. It's also opportunities. And we've been going through some of these for the past 3 years. So I know that people have learned lots of things. And I think it's probably time to make sure that we don't lose any of what we have learned over this time. And let's share that and make sure that we get it into a place that is going to be kept. So with that, I'd like to start with Dr. Mary. I think you've got our first question for today.
I do. And what I've done is I've also typed it out. So after I ask it, I'm going to put it in chat. I'm just going to hit send and it'll be in chat so you can read it too. So I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank all of you for putting your state behind your name so we know who's in the room. And my first question is, what are you doing to make sure that all volunteers feel part of the organization? That is, are you doing any best practices that surprise and delight your volunteers when using virtual systems? And also, what does not work or could be improved to ensure that there's enhanced volunteer participation? And I put the question in chat so that you can read it if you need to review what I said, because it was a mouthful. So who has something to contribute to that question? What are you doing to make volunteers feel like they're a part of the organization?
And you can come off mute and just start.
I see Becky's ready to contribute.
Well, I thought I'd jump in. It was awful quiet there in Oregon here. And I noticed my staff partner's on too. So we have an onboarding procedure. And at the end of that, they get a buddy to bring them into, once they've been oriented, they get the buddy system, and that helps them go where they need to go. They get personalized calls and letters, and we thoroughly look at their skills and what they're interested in and bring them in and invite them to all kinds of activities.
That sounds like a wonderful welcome for a volunteer. I see Byron, you have your hand up, and then Linda.
Thank you. First, let me introduce Laurie Hubbard, who is with us today. She is a new Associate State Director here in Tennessee. And as we organize in regions, she is in the East region. So we're happy to have Laurie joining us today. So just wanted to recognize that. I think and this is coming up actually on this Saturday, what we've tried to do with new volunteers is do an orientation. I won't call it onboarding. That's a whole other process, I think, but an orientation to AARP. And I personally, having been in the role of a director for the middle division, over the many years that I was that director, I always felt it was important to sit down face to face. Now, again, with COVID, we couldn't do that. But now that we can meet, of sitting personally face to face with the individual. And I've created a binder of information going from the top of the organization, AARP, to how the state, and then going into how the middle division operates and the opportunities that are there. So it's what I think is really important is that personal opportunity to sit down, and I'm meeting with either 4 or 5 brand new volunteers on Saturday. We've planned it for 2 hours. If it goes that long, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But opportunity to have interaction, discussion, ask questions, and to give them as firm an understanding of the organization as we can. And then from there, moving it further into the middle division, the middle region for them to get more information. But I think that personal touch of sitting down face to face to do that kind of orientation is really beneficial in getting new volunteers set and ready to run with the organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Byron. Linda,
Hi, it's nice to see everybody.
good to see you too.
So we just had our volunteer appreciation mailing that we put out. And we sent a mailing to a gift card to everybody that was an active volunteer. And for those folks that we hadn't heard from for a while, they actually got a letter that had events that were upcoming, and we're going to follow through with phone calls after that. So this is a way of getting folks back into the swing of things, hopefully having them come back to us with some of the many events that we have, which touch all of the different measures that you put out there, Deborah, in person, virtual, and hybrid. So all of those different areas were mentioned in that letter to these volunteers that had been away for a while. I know that one of the other state presidents actually called all of the volunteers on his list just to make sure that people were feeling good and getting ready to come back into the fold and participate. But some of our volunteers have mobility issues, and that's where the hybrid opportunities are really good. But I think a good mixture of that is important too. But that's what we're up to.
Well, thank you, Linda. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure that the letters and the gift cards were received well, and the letters with the events too, because everybody doesn't go online to see those. So that's a wonderful opportunity as well, using both high tech and low tech to reach out to volunteers. Jean?
Hi.
Hi.
We are trying something new in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So after all of the orientation and some of the onboarding, we are developing better job descriptions and things that will be written out to give them. We are going to have dedicated greeters at our in-person meetings. So if somebody comes in the room, there's absolutely somebody that will be reaching out to them, and every new volunteer will be assigned a mentor. In the past, we've had somebody that we've called a mentor that has shown them how to do the particular job that they volunteered to do, but this will be a dedicated person who will be their contact for months. And that person will get together with them on a regular basis and talk about how things are going and, you know, what we could do better, what they're not quite comfortable with, just how we appreciate them.
And I think that's a great way to welcome a volunteer and somebody that they can go to regardless of what their question is. I think that's a wonderful way to be become part of a active organization. Is there anyone else that wants to talk about what they do to make sure volunteers feel a part of the organization, or any best practices that surprise and delight volunteers using the virtual system?
While you're thinking about it, I have a couple of questions. One is for Oregon. Becky, from what I understand, you all may have revamped your process, and you described it, I thought, very well. Is there anything in writing that you would like to share with us or with the group here?
But we do have a procedure, the part of the onboarding procedure, which is from the time that a prospect enters or says, I'm raising my hand, I want to join, they apply through an application online. And once that gets into our system, it goes through a procedure, and we have a flow chart and step-by-step instructions, along with an orientation at the end. And if our orientation is far out, then we also refer them to Fast Track to get them up and running so that they can kind of jump right in. We still do Oregon orientation. So that's really important. So yes, we have documented our systems.
Great, great. And you also answered the second question that I was going to have for everyone is, are you using Fast Track at some point for your orientation? And Becky, you did indicate you were doing that. Linda, does Fast Track count or figure in terms of what you're doing?
Absolutely, absolutely. We're in the process too, Becky, of revamping our volunteer roles or assignments, I guess, as well as coming up with new procedures and who's doing what with regards to that. So, but Fast Track is a part of that. It's great. And volunteer led, you just have the enthusiasm of those wonderful folks down in Florida and Tennessee, and it's great. They've just taken it on, and I think people really enjoy having that personalized service. So yes.
Great, thank you very much. Mary, it looks like we've got another question.
Aaron from Minnesota.
Ask the question that I had. I'm a new staff member in Minnesota, and I'm looking to kind of put in place both a state specific orientation and then kind of that like mentorship buddy for new volunteers. And that was kind of exactly my question, is if there are any written resources, or if anyone would be willing to share, like, what is the content of their orientation? Or I think Byron mentioned like sitting down with volunteers and walking through some specific things. And I was just wondering if there's anywhere I could go to steal some of these great ideas.
Well, that's what we're all about here, not only sharing and legally stealing, which we just call using best practices. So if anyone who's mentioned any best practices are willing to share, at the end, Deborah always kind of offers a call to have those documents sent to her, and then she puts them in our library, in our chatter. She shares them through chatter, and they're in the library. And also, okay. Erin, how new are you?
I believe I'm starting my 4th week.
Okay.
4th week.
Okay, so you would just have a field day going into, well, did you say you're a volunteer or staff? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Staff.
Okay, well, you have access to the portal too.
Yes.
You would just have a field day going into the portal and seeing all the resources that have been shared from previous 360 meetings.
Okay.
And I'm sure that somebody will be willing to share some of the things that they talked about today as well. So
okay,
welcome to the team. Welcome to the family.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Welcome to acronym soup.
Yes, I'm learning that quickly. Thank you.
If anybody has nothing more to share, I'll turn it over to Deborah for the next
Okay.
question.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mary. Next question, it's still kind of going in the same vein, but what we're wanting to know is, are you recognizing and orienting or engaging your volunteers differently based on the location? I think one of the positive things that came out of, not came out of COVID, but our having to keep in touch with people, we learned how to do our virtual things and we made people more comfortable with that. So are we approaching our volunteers differently in our urban and rural settings, or is there something that I just wanted to know what people were doing? What worked? And maybe I'm talking almost too much. Or I saw someone shaking their head. Byron?
Yeah, I'm just trying to capture what you're asking and thinking about the Middle Tennessee. We do have our main focus is the Nashville metro area, but in the middle we go up to Kentucky and we go down to, I guess it's Alabama. So I'm trying to think, I don't think we do anything differently depending upon the location. So that's why I was shaking my head, because myself of trying to think what we do or how we might do something differently in relation to that aspect. That's it.
Okay.
In Oregon, we do have some remote locations where we have CAT teams, the community action teams that gather down in Southern Oregon and Lane County. And they meet amongst themselves, but they're still attached to the main office. So that's one way of reaching some of the more rural volunteers. And of course, virtual has opened up a lot of other options too.
All right. Well, I know we're back into the alphabet soup kind of thing, but CAT, Becky, what does CAT mean?
CAT, it stands for Community Action Team.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and they work in their community or county and provide events and informational events and fun events, participating in fairs or things like that, to get our word out, the AARP word out. Movies for Grown-ups is another one that is can be done at theaters in remote locations.
Okay.
Hey, Deborah, it's Byron.
Yes.
Let me throw this thought out. With the COVID experience and doing things via the internet, when I think it was when Friendly Voices started that program, we did do something. We did put out the announcement about that via the internet, but also recognizing a large number of our folks in the rural areas don't, at that time, probably still don't have internet access. We did have postcards sent to make those folks aware of Friendly Voices and the phone number to call. So yes, we did do something different in relation to the rural areas and the metropolitan area because of not having internet access, and therefore the postcard sent to the home address.
Okay, did that approach work?
I think from the data the information we received from Will, that there was an increase. I can't say a great increase, but there was an increase in Tennessee in relation to the number of folks wanting to joining that program and wanting the phone calls. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Byron. Anyone else have something they'd like to share, approaches? And one of the other questions I had was, when you're holding a volunteer meeting, do any of you earmark any kind of an allocation for those meetings? Or how is that managed? I'm thinking in terms of budget or whatever. Is that a concern? Okay. We
What,
don't
what
even,
do you mean by allocation, Deborah? I mean, because obviously there is a budget and things don't get funded and things do get funded depending on what the emphasis is.
okay, well, I guess my question is there one specifically a budget for volunteer meetings, for the things that you want to do for volunteers?
You know, it's interesting. That's an interesting issue that we ran into was, and this gets back to your initial question about hybrid opportunities versus virtual opportunities, right? Leading back to that, the expense of having in-person events versus the hybrid system, or not the hybrid, the virtual system, has made a big shift in how we've had to orient our different kinds of events. Because it costs more to have an in-person event where you may have some sort of food associated with it versus an event where you might pay a facilitator or a nonprofit, or maybe it's not paid, maybe it's a consulting fee, whatever the correct terminology is for that. So it makes a difference along those lines. And I know we've had to shift our budgets around because of that, of wanting to do more like we used to do with regards to in-person events, but having to make sure we have that combination of events that hits multiple targeted groups of volunteers.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Linda. Alan, I believe you've got your hand up. You're mute. Okay.
I do. I'm a little different because I'm from the driver safety side, so I don't have quite the same issues that you have, but we have once a quarter here in Kansas, we have a virtual meeting of all our instructors. Do you do anything as far as providing little prizes or presents or giveaways to help interest with this? Or if you do, how do you do it? This is something that I would like to get started, a little carrot in front, to get them maybe, hey, if I'm going to win something or earn something, I might be more interested in attending. And so does anybody else do anything like that?
And you're talking about people who may be invited, who might be volunteers for driver safety, or are these people who are already committed?
No, these are already committed.
Okay.
So again, and I know I always throw a stick in a monkey wrench here, and I apologize for that because
no, it's fine.
But what I'm trying to figure out is a way to maybe, like I say, give some incentive, if that's the word I want to use, for people to come. And whether it's now, I don't care whether it's somebody that's already on board or somebody who's just coming in. I mean, the incentive is still the same principle.
Right. No, I was thinking in terms of recruitment. I didn't know if that's what you were doing. So,
And
because sometimes that might make a difference, right, Mary?
Oh, yeah. Linda put food is always an incentive, and a lunch meeting. So do you have a lunch meeting or some kind of snacks that you're meeting?
No, these are strictly online. These are strictly virtual.
Okay.
My people are too far apart to no. I mean, that said, we have a district meeting, and that's for the local people in a given zone, county, whatever you want to call it. And so I have those for that, but this is statewide. And and unfortunately, we have a lot of areas that people are a long way away from each other. So for us to have a meeting in a central location, the mileage cost alone is pretty significant.
Right.
And you there. So what we're doing now, and this doesn't mean we won't change, but what we're doing now is having the virtual meetings.
Mhm.
And this seems to be working fairly well, but I would like to jazz it up a little bit, if that's the
Okay.
word I want to say.
Okay. Okay. Well, I can tell you there are a couple of things that I've seen tried before, and others of you can step in. One of them is to kind of have a trivia game where, you know, there are online games that you can pull up, or you can create one related to the task or the items that you're going to be studying at your driver safety meeting. And you can provide a winner. You know, they can get a gift card or something like that for that, for the person that wins. You can do, you know, those kinds of things. And I think, Christine, do you have a suggestion here?
Well, I kind of went through something similar to that. So just for the folks in this group, I was a volunteer in Kentucky, Lexington for 7 years. I just recently got hired in January. So now I'm on the other side where I can see where the administrative works. And I recently sent out a little swag giveaway to some volunteers. So I think it depends a lot on your own state's ability to have the staff that can do it, or is willing to take the time, because I think there's a way that you can order directly. I haven't dealt with that, but I can tell you that I sent thank yous to about almost 20 volunteers who helped me judge for the community challenge, and then a grandparent essay contest. And it was costly. It was like, and this was just regular mail. I didn't even use priority or express mail. So that's a consideration with the challenge of doing how to get your incentive to that person. Some of the other staff, seasoned staff, might know if there's direct ways to do something like that, but I'm sure mailing something that is flat or can fit in a regular envelope will work so much better than what I did, which most of my cost was an average of $5 in regular mail, not priority mail, not
Yeah.
Federal Express.
Okay, thank you, Christine. And one of the things that Linda put in the chat is something else I've also seen tried. When a group is spread across large areas, as you're talking about, Alan, rather than you're having food in some central location, you could reimburse them at a particular amount. We've said at different times, it's $10. You know, go have your lunch. You can have it with us. We can have it together while we're on virtual. You can do it afterwards, and you'll be reimbursed for that. And we've done that for people in different locations as well. So, okay.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good idea.
And I'll contribute to that idea. I can't remember what the event was in Michigan. And I don't know if it was for the Detroit team or for Michigan volunteers statewide, but we had packets that were mailed to us. It was some celebration of sort. And all of us received our packages with a note on the outside not to open until the specified date. And inside there were a variety of things. I remember it had some ears and a tail, because we were celebrating something that had a lion or a jungle theme of sort, but there were some other wonderful giveaways in there for each of us too, as a celebration. But included in that was just the goodwill that all of us felt good coming together and having this packet of stuff that we got to open and got to share together. And I know during the pandemic, there were several activities that I was involved with where packets were sent to the home. And so whether it's something that comes from one major location, or someone has to pack them and send them out. I think that's another consideration too. But those creative incentives do add a special flair to the meeting, and they also might encourage people to participate if they know that there's a little hook or a little carrot that they get.
Yeah. Mary put in the chat one of the things that I've seen used, which is the wheel of names, so that if you pull that up on the internet and you put in all of the names of the people who are going to be at this meeting, and as that circulates, then as it circles around and wherever it falls, that's the person that gets the prize for coming to the meeting. Okay, but
Is
you
there
could
an app?
see.
Is there an
Yes.
app for that?
Yes, and it's online, and she's put it here for us in chat, but it's called wheelofnames.com. Okay. So Dr. Mary, would you like to take the next question then?
I will. And that next question is, and I think I do have it to put in. Oh, no, that's not what I want to put in. To put in the chat as well. So the next question is, do you include face-to-face and virtual volunteers in the same meeting? So I guess that's called a hybrid meeting at this point. Where do you find support for volunteers meeting that you hold? Is it within the state office? Is it outside agencies? And are you looking at, or do you already hold hybrid meetings for members as well as volunteers? And I know that we've had a lot of practice, some success. Some of us still have challenges with the hybrid depending on the location, but certainly the pandemic gave us a lot of practice doing the virtual part. The hybrid is something that, you know, each of us have had to kind of work our way through because each location is different. Margaret, do you want to share with us what you've learned?
Okay, hi, everybody. I'm from the Philadelphia chapter.
Mhm.
And we do not do hybrid, but we do either in person or we do virtual. And when we do in person, we meet at the AARP downtown Philadelphia office, where they will provide either breakfast or lunch. And we've had several meetings there, going over the portal, going over with our new volunteers how to go and do reimbursements. Now, and we've also had in person, because we have a big election coming up in Philadelphia, the mayoral election. And we had at one point 12 candidates. AARP in Philadelphia, we did one-on-one meetings with the candidates involving either our seasoned volunteers and our new volunteers, where they could come in and sit down and ask pertinent questions for the candidates coming up. And of course, the questions, we wanted it to revolve around green space, livable community, affordable housing, and accessible transportation. We wanted to hear their viewpoint on all of those. So we always include our new volunteers with our seasoned volunteers for any of our events. But again, they are either in person or completely online.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, here I am now.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you, Margaret.
you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Christine?
Oh, you're muted, Christine.
So in Lexington, we do have the hybrid situation, and we get usually about 25 volunteers that come to the meetings. And at this point, and actually for the last few years, we've been using the library system for our meetings. We try to keep it consistent, but every now and then we have to move it, you know, if the rooms are not available. And then For the folks that are online, we do offer them money incentive for them to purchase their own lunches, but we do provide lunches for the volunteers that are there. But for those of you who are, if you are doing hybrid, one of the problems that we're finding is that when you have the folks online, they can't often hear the people in the room, you know, depending on the structure of your room and how big, and we're constantly asking people to speak up. Well, you have the combination of a lot of people that are hard of hearing anyway, and in the room, and then some people that just can't talk loud enough. So I just wondered how people are dealing with that. I don't know. Do we need to get a microphone or what?
Yeah, there's a combination of things that I've observed that, yes, a microphone is needed so that it can be heard in the audience and sometimes even on Zoom, depending on the person and their voice. And also closed captioning has to be activated, and that's, you know, part of the setup so that those who are online, if there is a hearing challenge, they can see the words, and that minimizes that challenge. So, you know, again, those are a lot of the different moving pieces that we're learning about when you have the hybrid situation that has to be on point, because if it isn't, somebody's not going to have a good experience, and you'll be entertaining more complaints in the chat, or, you know, because they can hear it in the room, but they can't hear it in the chat, and it just creates a whole nother set of issues. So.
Yeah. What we found out, at least in the ones that I've done, and I've done a lot, it seems like quite a few hybrid meetings for both public and for AARP volunteers. And if you just try to use a computer and use the sound for that, it won't work. You really have to have the formal microphone set up for it to be communicated across the room. And, you know, so that otherwise it doesn't. We've found that out pretty early on.
And there's
But
also
thank you
the
for
instance where
you.
someone in the room will say, well, I don't need a mic, and it's not for them, it's for everybody
for
else.
everybody,
Regardless
right?
of if they're using their outdoor voice, that doesn't help everybody else. Jean?
Three things. So I'm mostly an advocacy volunteer.
Okay.
And of course, when the offices are closed, we went to virtual, and we have remained hybrid, and goes back to answering the question before that. New Mexico is a big state, and it has let us have our rural folks that can't drive to Santa Fe be involved in advocacy. Going back to the Albuquerque group, we tried some hybrid meetings. Currently, the state office is in Santa Fe. Next year, it will be here in Albuquerque. So we've been meeting at a community partner's office. They did not have the microphone, so that hybrid did not work.
Right.
And I also belong to another group that we've been using the OWL for a year or so now, and it's my understanding that's what we will be getting in the Albuquerque office when it does open. You have to be within a certain it is much better, but the mic system that they put in Santa Fe right now is wonderful. I was one of the meetings I was in Albuquerque, and somebody was rolling their pen across the table, and I'm quickly typing in chat going, oh my God, we cannot hear out here. That is so loud. So you've got to be careful about your mic systems and what people do.
Right. Right. Okay. Thank you, Jeannie. Appreciate that.
While we're waiting for another question, I'll just quickly show what the wheel of names looks like
Okay.
for those who may want to see it. Has it shown up?
No, there it is. Here it goes.
Do you see it?
Yes.
And you can populate it very easily. Okay. My system is not going to cooperate on my side here.
Yeah, but we can see it turning.
So that's what it looks like. And it's very easy. It's free. You can create an account. And I'm trying to stop sharing now.
You did. You're good. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you all very much for the comments that you've made. Now, I teased something at the beginning. I'm not sure that everybody heard this, but for some time, Linda has been nudging me and this group to make sure that we put lots of information in the chatter group. Okay, there are probably 136 different files that are in that chatter group on the volunteer portal, and it's called the Exchange. What I did, since it was either watch the coronation or participate in it in some way over the weekend or do something worthwhile for me, and that was to come up with a listing that now includes all of the resources that are in there, and they're categorized by volunteer interaction, recruitment, orientation, onboarding, team interaction, and so on. That is now posted. All of the items that have been sent by you wonderful people now have something that ties to this list. And all you have to do is to go into the portal and look for, I put the list and it says read first, so you can see that. And all of the items are there. So as we continue to add things, that's why I keep asking, please send them, because we had things that Oregon did in 2019, and we need to update that with what Oregon is doing now. But there are dates on everything as well, so you can tell whether it's old, whether brand's going to get on you, for using it, or it's just something that you can use. So, Linda, thank you very much for doing that, and I'm hoping this is going to be useful for everyone. And I'm sure if it's not, and if we need to make changes, you'll tell us what changes need to be made. So if you can go out onto the portal and check that out in your spare time. Thanks very much. Now, we've reached the end of our session. I did want to call out that on the OVE update today, the volunteer portal team is still holding office hours, and OVE is also holding office hours related to the waivers. So if there are questions and things that people are having, check out the OVE update and you can find out when those office hours are, and you can get help for your questions. Next month's meeting of the Exchange is on June 13th. It's hard to believe it's June already. And the title is Encouraging, Developing, and Supporting Volunteer Leadership. I think a lot of us have questions about how do we get people to step up, and that's some of the information that we hope to share in the June meeting. So if there are no other items, I wanted to say thank you, Mary, for being your usual wonderful support and help. It's an honor to sit in a co-lead position with Dr. Mary. And thank you all for participating today. Please have a safe week And I think there is a tech training session at 4 o'clock. They have always made sure that they give us time between this meeting and their meeting. That is actually an agreed behind the scenes thing that we do. So tech training occurs at 4. So you've got a bit of time if you want to head on to that too. So have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Deborah, for
And-
your leadership. Goodbye.
Deborah, I was just going to add that the training today is about AARP apps that people may not know about that can carry on their phone, the apps that are available. So,
Right. Thank you very much, Gail.
Yeah.
4 o'clock Eastern time. All right.
Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.
Bye-bye.
I have a thought.
What, Byron?
What a surprise.
Can we stop recording, Deborah?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes. Before
It's not that bad.
Byron starts, you want